Bowling Green Falcons going back on the road this week, heading to Georgia Tech as we welcome in Michael Burwell from the Toledo Blade. Michael, thank you for coming in again.
Yep, thank you for having me.
Let's start with this latest loss against Ohio. And the fact of the matter is this Bowling Green Falcon, particularly the quarterback room, they ought to just move that quarterback room into a hospital because it's the walking wounded at quarterback.
Oh, it's really been tough these last couple games. I mean, Connor Bazelak played through an injury a pretty significant injury during the Ohio game. He obviously didn't play against Michigan. Coach Scott Loeffler in today's press conference mentioned that Camden North had a concussion that he suffered during the Michigan game. He's fully cleared to play now, but they didn't want to risk anything, obviously, last week against Michigan. So basically, Bazelak's just kind of toughening it out, playing through an injury. I mean, he played just about the entire game. Obviously, he kind of struggled. Ohio's got a great defense and just tough game. But Loeffler said how tough he was. I mean, obviously the play wasn't the best, but the fact that he even went out there and played, I mean, he's dealing with some pretty big injuries. I know he's had had a sleeve on his right leg. He's got a knee brace on his right leg. It's the quarterback situation's just been really, really tough for BG with the inconsistencies between all of the quarterbacks and now with all the injuries that they're dealing with too.
Also, one of the big issues dealing with this Falcon program right now is perhaps the mental game. We're seeing a lot of penalties. We saw ejections against Ohio. It's almost as if there needs to be an attitude adjustment on this program.
Yeah, the Ohio game was just not good. 3 players ejected, 2 of them for getting multiple unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. BG had 12 accepted penalties for 123 yards. That doesn't even count all of the penalties that were declined. Things didn't go well for them early on. Ohio got some really, really good bounces, like just things you don't see very often. They got some great bounces. BG they completely fell apart like they've done in the past. You know, this year, like the Liberty game, they got behind really early. They played poorly to start, but they found a way to get back in it because they didn't lose their cool. They stuck with it. Completely opposite on Saturday against Ohio, and it's just so odd considering how good the first 3 games were. They went into Michigan and really played well. They only had 2 penalties against Michigan the entire game. And then to go from 2 to 12 like this in the blink of an eye in your most important MAC game of the year, just a lot of questions in that regard for BGSU.
Defensively, certainly the turnovers put the BG defense in a difficult spot throughout that game.
Yeah, it really did. Ohio was able to capitalize on a couple just fumbles. They were able to return for touchdowns. Short fields with the interceptions as well. Ohio hasn't really lit up the scoreboard this year, but they were able to get 38 points. A couple of them obviously defensive touchdowns, but considering how high powered that offense can be with a quarterback like Curtis Rourke, BG's defense didn't do half bad. A little over 300 yards allowed. I think just over 200 in the first half. Obviously, the game was over, in the second half. But once again, this defense shows that they can make plays, they can do things well, they can make stops if they need to. But at some point, the offense has to really pick up its game.
Looking ahead, I know you wrote about this earlier this week in the Blade. There are a couple of milestones in the very near future for a couple of the BG players on offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Wide receiver Odu Hilaire is, I think, about 78 yards away from 1,000 for his receiving career at BGSU. He transferred from Alabama A&M, had a great few years there. So he's real close to that milestone. Terrion Stewart, who had a great game against Ohio. Ohio came in with, I think, the 6th best run defense in the country, only allowing 50-some yards a game. Stewart rushes 12 times for 107 yards and a touchdown. Good performance by him. It's fun to watch him run because usually the first guy isn't bringing him down. He is such a physical runner. His legs are just enormous. Only about 5'9". He's really fun to watch, and he had a great game. I think he only needs, if I remember correctly, 74 yards to reach 1,000 for his BGSU career. So, and considering Georgia Tech I think they allow about 230 yards a game on the ground. Maybe this is an area where BG can really exploit and find some success, especially with Terrion Stewart.
Let's talk a bit more about Georgia Tech, as the Yellow Jackets now 2-2. They won last week against Wake Forest. Their losses are to Louisville and to Ole Miss, so not a bad loss in those two. And this is a Georgia Tech team that perhaps was picked a little bit low in the ACC, but early on they're shown to be a very competitive team.
Yeah, they really are. They have an offense that can just rack up the yards, put up the points. They are one of the top teams in the FBS with, I think, 480 yards of offense a game. And it's balanced, too. I think it's about 192 rushing yards, 288 passing yards. Quarterback Haynes King just transferred from Texas A&M, already has 1,100 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, couple picks. And he's a threat with his legs, too. I think about around 150 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. So, I mean, this offense can absolutely move the ball. BG is going to have his hands full in that regard. That's going to be an interesting battle if BG, I mean, I don't think they want to get into a shootout if the offense is clicking, but this is a Georgia Tech team that has found some good things offensively.
And you mentioned that Georgia Tech offense, it is more balanced. This isn't quite the Georgia Tech triple option that we used to see. They swung a little bit more towards the pass game. That didn't quite work out, but as you said, they're a lot more of a balanced offense now.
Yeah, it's really I mean, it's pretty impressive what they're able to do just in both regards. You know, they average about 33 points a game. I mean, just really, they've been really solid offensively, but they've also given up a lot of points defensively. I think they average about around 29 points a game, giving up 430 yards a game that they give up, and a lot of that's on the ground. So might be a good week for BG to find something offensively. I mean, it's obviously going to be a tough task going up against an ACC school, but for the Falcons, it's all about their mindset. Yeah. If they have the mindset like they did against Michigan, good things can happen. If they come out and play like they did against Ohio, then it's going to be a very, very long night.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in Atlanta, as the Falcons aren't expected to win this game. So maybe, Michael, as you kind of alluded to, they can surprise some folks, because let's face it, Bowling Green needs a win. There's less and less games on the schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. They need a win. I mean, it doesn't get any easier after this week with Miami and then Buffalo, both on the road. Scott Loeffler said today he just doesn't like the Georgia Tech game between two MAC games. But it is what it is, and they just kind of got to deal with it. But over these next 3 games, they have got to find a way to win 1 or 2 of them, or else you're looking at a 1-6 start.
Absolutely. This could be the defining stretch of the Bowling Green season as they become road warriors. Of course, you can read all of Michael Burwell's coverage of the Bowling Green Falcons in the Blade, as well as the website. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.